Good evening and hello. This is a day after Super Tuesday in the United States, where the primaries for this year's presidential elections are in full swing. We're going to be talking to Liza Featherston, a writer, activist, lives in New York and has been following these events and has just compiled a book of powerful feminist essays written by her and others, very critical of Hillary Clinton, the leading contender. Now, when an American election takes place, it's not only the United States that's involved. The American election affects the entire world, given the position of the United States in the world as the single and most powerful imperial state in global history. So we're very glad to have Liza with us. Liza, welcome. We'll go straight to what happened on Super Tuesday. The situation, as I see it, is fairly straightforward, that while Donald Trump continues to floor the Republican establishment, who are very angry with him, and has wiped out yet again virtually all the official Republican contenders, and the Republicans are talking about fielding a candidate against him, possibly, on the one hand. And on the other hand, Bernie Sanders' amazing campaign, which had attracted so many young people, is still going on. He's won 3 or 4 states yesterday, but it looks that given the way in which the Democratic Party functions, Hillary is likely to be the Democratic candidate. Your first impressions?
I think that's absolutely right. Hillary Clinton is likely to be the Democratic candidate. We never expected, at least I certainly never expected Bernie Sanders to get this far. It's been an amazing grassroots campaign, and he really connects with a lot of people that wouldn't have been traditionally assumed to be socialist voters. I mean, Sanders has obviously been around in U.S. politics for a long time, being the lone socialist in the Senate. But really, that he could conduct a nationwide campaign and get so much support from white working class voters and from young people has been a really big surprise, and suggests that there's much to build on for the left here. I mean, even though he is most likely not going to be the Democratic nominee.
Liza, what seems astonishing to us watching it from the other side of the Atlantic, and I'm sure to people in South America and elsewhere, is how Bernie describes himself as a democratic socialist. Well, that is amazing enough in American politics, regardless of what it means.
Yes.
It's such a dirty word, the S word. But more interestingly, that I've seen in some opinion polls, young Americans, when interviewed, say that they prefer socialism to capitalism. I mean, is this the effect of Bernie, or was this a trend visible even before?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that one of the great things that the Bernie Sanders campaign has done, regardless of whether people think he's a socialist or not, I know a lot of socialists don't even agree that he is, but regardless, I think he's made the word a little bit more acceptable, perhaps. But I also think this generation doesn't remember the Cold War. They don't remember all the things that you and I grew up hearing about, how horrible communism is. You know, I mean, they have never been propagandized in that way, and they are interested in what would be some solutions to the very real problems our society faces. And if some of that is called socialism, they seem to be fine with it in very surprisingly large numbers. Yeah.
We'll return to Bernie again when we discuss Hillary Clinton, but let's discuss Donald Trump for a minute. That he's bigoted, we know. That he spouts racist rhetoric, we know. That he's an Islamophobe, we know. He's all these things. But yet, despite all these things, he is also challenging the political establishment of the United States in a way it has not been challenged before for a very long time. I mean, I guess Huey Long in the early half of the last century did it to a certain extent. But Trump has gone way beyond that. I mean, he could be the official Republican candidate, and that is astonishing. And that the establishment is panicking is a sign of how far he's got. I mean, and he does odd things, unpredictable things. I mean, I saw him totally demolish Bush on the Iraq War.
Yes.
Which
yes.
no Democrat would do.
No.
So it's a weird phenomenon. How do you explain it?
Well, I think his appeal actually is similar in some ways to Bernie Sanders. I mean, obviously he's a right-wing candidate in the ways that you've just outlined, but he appeals to people's great dissatisfaction with the political elites, with all kinds of elites, and people's dissatisfaction with endless war, which is very very real, and and he even sort of I think that there's a way that he seems ideologically open to things that a Republican wouldn't typically be. Like the other Republicans keep hammering on him because he supposedly supported single-payer health care. So there's sort of a sort of an entrepreneurial, well, I'll just try anything quality that I think people do like, and that aspect. I think is similar to Bernie Sanders in a way. I'd obviously much rather see the socialist candidate benefit from all this dissatisfaction with the elites than to see that kind of support go to somebody who's really deeply an intolerant demagogue. But the dissatisfaction is the same that he's tapping into.
But unlike Bernie, I think Trump could well now win the Republican nomination. I mean, Cruz won Texas last night, but that is his own state. But apart from that, it's Trump all the way, it seems to me. How are they going? I mean, they can't stop him. I mean, the choice was either to embrace him or to destroy him. He's turned out to be pretty indestructible, Liza.
There are all sorts of political rumors flying around. I mean, people are saying that some prominent moderate Republican senator is about to endorse Hillary because he's so concerned about Trump. But then surprising things have happened. I think a lot of the ruling elites are going to make peace with Trump fairly quickly because they're going to see his most extremist rhetoric as just for show, just populism, just populist, political theater, and they're going to see, well, he's a businessman, he's one of us, and so I think that while he's quite incompatible with the mainstream of the Republican Party, which is at this point far-right Christians. But as far as the business elite part of it, I think they might come around to him.
And of course, Republican neocons, I mean, the Bushes for one, and others would be quite happy voting Hillary. The differences with her are minimal.
That's right. Well, and this is the dispiriting truth of the Democratic strategy. As my husband, Doug Henwood, wrote this the other day, their strategy is to go after these moderate Republican suburbanites and to give up on the white working class altogether. The voters that Sanders would have been able to appeal to had he become the nominee, or if he were to somehow now become the nominee. I mean, that they really have no plan at all to try to appeal to the working class, which is, I think, realistic for the Clintonites, but it sort of shows how cynical they are that they would rather try to appeal to the Republicans than to even engage with average working people.
Lisa, whenever we see movements like this, we wonder, I mean, the movement behind Bernie Sanders, we always think that how could the strength and energy, enthusiasm, hope of this movement be embodied in something outside the Democratic Party? And we haven't won on this for a long, long time. The last time we got close to it was the Rainbow Coalition that formed around Jesse Jackson. And Jackson then caved in and rushed back to the Democrat establishment. Now, Bernie, to his credit, has not said anything to the contrary. He doesn't pretend to be who he isn't. He's a sort of left-wing ensconced inside the Democrats. But the feeling I get watching a lot of these rallies where Bernie Sanders has been speaking is that the people want something more. I mean, there's a little current, you see, the boom or bust, saying, you know, if we don't get Bernie, we are definitely not voting Hillary. It's a different layer of young people than the ones who put Obama into office.
Yeah, I think there's certainly some of the same people, and you know, some of the same grassroots Democrats. You know, the grassroots of the party is always more progressive than the party elites, and you know, so some of those people are the same. But I do think, yeah, it has certainly brought in a much more left-leaning group of young people, and people are asking much more left-wing questions about the direction of U.S. society, and in that way, I think it's certainly different from, say, the Howard Dean campaign or the Obama campaign in that way. I think that Jesse Jackson actually is a good parallel. And I certainly hope it winds up as a more promising movement to build on than that. But the Jackson campaign was making very concrete social democratic demands and appealing to a kind of a universality that I think we haven't, and I think this is the first time we're seeing that again.
And also in some parts of the states, Seattle in particular, there is a grassroots movement in which the left has intervened. I mean, Sawant has been elected to the council in Seattle, and she was elected the first time before the Sanders campaign began. There is some turbulence and social unrest in Chicago against Rahm Emanuel and his policies, groups springing up. So there are some possibilities there which one hasn't seen before in the States.
No, that's right, and I think that it's I think it's going to take the form both of people running on some of the specific issues raised by the Sanders campaign. I think people are going to work much more to bring those things out. There's a campaign right now in New York State for single-payer health care and I think the momentum for that is certainly spurred by this campaign. But we're also seeing a lot of interesting new kinds of people running for public office, and I think that's very interesting. There's a young socialist running in Washington D.C. for city council now. There's quite progressive lady from our neighborhood running for a state legislature named Zephyr Teachout. It's different from the Occupy movement, which was where people sort of weren't really sure how this would translate into taking control of the government. But this is very there's something very practical and concrete about this, like run for city council, actually like engage in the legislative process. It's interesting.
Let's come down to Hillary now. During the Obama campaign, I recall very vividly angering lots of people by many criticisms I made of Obama and the book I wrote about Obama. They said it was too soon, you shouldn't do it, give him at least 2 years in office, etc., etc. And don't forget that it's, after all, the first time we've had a colored person, a mixed race person, a black person, whatever they called him, in the White House. Now, okay, so we've experienced that. What is very interesting, and the fact that you've been able to compile this book and edit this book, False Choices, The Faux Feminism of Hillary Clinton, which will be out very soon, indicates that that type of just blind identity politics, that all you look at is a person's race or gender and nothing else, as if that is the only part of our identity, is the color of our skin or our gender, that seems to be really on the decline. The first thing I noticed in the Ohio elections was how many women voted for Bernie, young women voted for Bernie Sanders. Your book, which consists of powerful feminist essays by you and your sisters and colleagues, is a clear sign that there is an audience out there for such a book. How do you explain this shift, if you like, from the early period of Obama to now?
Well, I will first say I'm glad you think there's been a big shift. We actually, a lot of people said no when asked to write essays for the book, as you might, or to endorse it, as you might imagine, because the feminist establishment is firmly behind Hillary, and that includes many writers and people in the media, and so we certainly. But I do like to think that me and the coven of false choices writers do represent more than ourselves, and I think that the polls indicate that you know that young women have been voting for Bernie for sure, and have not been impressed by Hillary Clinton's claims to feminism or claims to upon their sisterly solidarity. I think one thing that might have changed a little bit is in part the example of Obama and the acknowledgement by many black intellectuals and black leaders that having a black president actually didn't change things that much for black people. And I think that that many women have drawn something from that insight, that we might have the same experience. I also think that another difference is that Hillary Clinton has been part of our public life for so long. I mean, and her history is so available, you know, and so I think that that's another thing that's important. Barack Obama was brand new. You know, he gave a speech at the Democratic convention, and then a few years later, he was running for president. You know, I mean, but he wasn't somebody who had that much of a history to scrutinize. And I also think. You know, feminism is also a bit complicated by generational and class divides right now, and that the support for Hillary versus not support for her certainly has been playing out in that way. Also, I think young women don't remember when. In the 1990s, how attacks on Hillary were mostly from the right, and were very misogynist and foolish, and there was and I think at many sort of older women do remember that and feel that supporting her is kind of a feminist duty, because look how much she has endured as a result of her gender. And I think, you know, fortunately, I think that young women are taking the sensible view that, you know, being attacked by Republican misogynists is unfortunate, but does not make you a feminist icon.
And Lisa, to add to that, I mean, it's interesting that realizing that she was losing the young women's vote, both Gloria Steinem, who's the mother of bourgeois feminism in the United States, and Madeleine Albright, Clinton's former Secretary of State, who I never thought of as a feminist, ever. I thought of many other things, but the word feminist never came to mind. Both of them insulting women who said they weren't going to vote for Hillary. Albright saying there's a berth reserved in hell for all the women who don't vote Hillary, and Gloria Steinem mouthing inanities, which one doesn't even want to mimic. Both of them had to go back and more or less apologize for having been so offensive, which was a sign that the Clinton campaign was realizing that it's, there's a lot to play for. You can't just win them over by saying Hillary's a woman.
Yeah, I think that's right. She certainly didn't. She certainly had widespread indiscipline with those surrogates. They were really speaking their mind and speaking the contempt for young women that I'm sure is somewhat sincere to them. And I think that it is interesting. It is interesting that that the Clinton campaign is so concerned about the competition from Sanders that they did have to make them apologize. But I think the incident also, both of those incidents really did reflect a kind of a contestation over feminism. Is feminism just for elite women, or is it about the liberation of all women? Is it about the ordinary working women? Is it about young women who are just entering the workforce? And it should be. It should not. It is not really. Movements shouldn't be for the advancement of Madeleine Albright. Movements should be, to ease her ability to, kill more people. Movements should be about the betterment of everybody. So I think that, this is a more, in some ways, I think young people, maybe not just on feminism, but on a whole host of issues, it's a very politically engaged and analytic generation. I think they get that.
And Lizette, talk a bit now about the book. Did you have problems getting all these essayists together in one volume, first? And secondly, what are the central theses of this book?
We did have some problems. A lot of people said no, did not want to criticize Hillary. I feel that we actually got a better collection in some ways as a result, because it is really a left-wing feminist collection. And that was really what we wanted to do. We didn't want to just pile on Hillary. We wanted to advance a left-wing vision of what feminism should be, and to elevate left feminist voices. As far as the argument of the book is that Hillary Clinton's feminism is an elite feminism that does not represent feminism's noblest traditions, which are anti-imperialist, anti-war, and redistributionist, and anti-racist. And Hillary Clinton's feminism is none of those things. So, the faux feminism in the title is a bit of playfulness. Of course, anyone can call themselves a feminist. Beyoncé is a feminist, I suppose. But it is to say, this is not the feminism that we think is meaningful to rally around and to organize around, and to advance. And we hope that we know that this kind of left feminism will outlive Hillary Clinton, but we would like to do her as much damage as possible in the process.
So, Liza, what is it going to be like being in your country with Trump representing the Republicans and Hillary, the Democrats? I mean, what a choice.
It's going to be horrible. It is going to be truly horrible. I think that a Trump versus Sanders race
Would have been very interesting.
would have been very interesting, really, really interesting. A Trump versus Hillary race is going to be depressing because Trump will be able to run a populist campaign against her, and he because she is deeply compromised by her history, and she is so close to Wall Street. She has been serving the ruling elite all of her political life, and waging war on the poor with policies like welfare reform, and so I think Trump's appeal to the ordinary person is going to be fairly robust, and I think that it will be depressing. I actually do think she will ultimately win. I don't think that Trump will become our president, but I think it will be. It will be harrowing and also discouraging to watch. I mean, I do think ultimately that the more people learn about Trump, and the more people will reject him. I don't think that the United States is actually a hotbed of white supremacy and intolerance.
Whoever wins, I mean, let's assume it's Trump or Hillary, though I agree with you, it's likely to be Hillary. The space has been created to build up powerful oppositions on a city level, on a regional level, and on a national level on different issues. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Well, Sanders has been a fundraising phenomenon. I mean, he raises so much money in small amounts. Just people sending him $25 here and there, and there's been a lot of interest in what is he going to do with all that money, and he has said he wants to use it to fund the revolution, that, as he says.
He's actually said that.
Yes. So, it's hard to know what that means yet without having more specifics. But it's a very commendable goal, obviously. And so that's one thing, is that, perhaps he will be able to, at minimum, put the money into some of the more grassroots, more farther left candidates who are running for office, but also this is it will be really interesting to see what kinds of new people have been trained by this, what kinds of organizing infrastructure has been built up, and I think the question of how to keep this momentum going, and how to put it toward building a broader left in the United States is it is the big next question, and it's actually an exciting one, and not one that I actually thought we would be asking at this time this year.
On that happy and optimistic note, it's time to close this discussion. Thanks very much for coming on. It's been great talking to you, and we'll talk again as the election draws closer.
Thank you so much. It's great talking with you, Tarek.
Bye.
Bye.